Our Indian innovators have stripped them down to their bare essentials and made them affordable, accessible, durable, and effective.
India has no problems with invention.
As his communication advisor, and now I run a business school with the JP Business School, and I'm still grappling with the intricacies of the academic world. Thank you all of us for coming here at this time and for this valedictory. We have a star-studded panel here, and there are more people. I think Natalia, yeah, please to come take a seat. So the rules of the game, since I've been an anchor on a television show for a very long time, we'll just have the rules of the game. Basically, that since we have such distinguished gentlemen and ladies on the dais, we'll give them time to speak, and something which is not in your agenda for the day, and that is a question-answer session. How many would you like to ask questions in the end? Hands going up, so that's good. I tell my students these days that if you don't ask questions after a lecture, it means you either didn't understand or you didn't hear properly.
In case I have a problem, I'll have to leave by 6:50.
6:50, yeah. So we'll do that. Okay, our subject of the day is leveraging international cooperation to boost Indian innovation ecosystem. I was just told that only in the state of Andhra Pradesh, if the innovation labs which are working there with the help of FICCI and the government, the entrepreneurs only in Andhra Pradesh can generate in the next 10 years economy worth ₹500 billion. So you can imagine the potential of innovation and the potential of innovation to increase the potential of India as a country. Today we are living in a world where the largest taxi service owns no cars. The largest accommodation provider owns no real estate. I can see some heads shaking in agreement. The largest phone companies have no telecom infrastructure. Most valuable retail company in the world has no inventory. And most popular media owner has no editors or journalists like me. That's Facebook, by the way. The movie houses, the largest in the world, have no cinemas. And the largest software companies don't code. They hire coders. But they don't code, they don't make apps. And those two, everyone knows, are Apple and Google. So this is a world we are living in, and all this has been possible because of innovation. And we've been down there in the atrium where we saw some fantastic manifestations of this innovation with some young people. And my guests here also have seen that. And I'll just go from one by one. We have Dr. Shashi Tharoor, who I first met in 90s when his first book came out, and it was read by him in London, which and I was told that there's a very young guy, you must meet him, he's very handsome. And this was naturally said by a woman colleague of mine. So, Dr. Didar Singh is here, who's been, Didar Singh is not here. So, we have Dr. Ray Johnson, former Chief Technology Officer, Lockheed Martin, who's worked with 72,000 people on 4,000 programs. I mean, just imagine the kind of interaction, the kind of complexity of that kind of work. And he's still here, batting. Welcome. We have Dr. Ashok Chauhan, who's a byword in innovating education in India. He's the head of the MIT education system, who has about 95,000 students these days of various ages. We have Dr. Natalia Agapitova, sorry, and she's with the World Bank. She's been in for 17 years. She's worked in Latin America, Europe, Africa, and now she is heading the global social enterprise innovation program at the World Bank. And Mr. Mathur is not here. Yeah, Mr. Mathur. Mr. Mahajan, welcome, sir, whose books I have read. Thank you for writing all those lovely books.
Thank you.
Yeah. And he is right now a chair in business at John P. Harbin Continental Chair in Business at McCombs School of Business, University of Texas, Austin. I will start quickly with Dr. Tharoor, who has just been hijacked and shown the latest innovations in India. Dr. Tharoor.
Should I come there? Or do
Yeah, you come here.
Thank you very much, Pankaj, and distinguished speakers on the podium. And I apologize, I realize looking at the time now that I will not be able to linger for the remarks of the others, but I hope that what I have to say will be of some value to you. As a proud Indian with an abiding faith in India's destiny, it gives me a lot of satisfaction that we're having this meeting and that all of you have lingered till the end, though I can see that there are obviously also a lot of empty seats. Let me compliment Vicky for recognizing the importance of innovation and of R&D in India's economic resurgence. Obviously, this has been a big event, looking at the brochure. 2 days, 12 sessions, 65 speakers. I had speak 300 people in the audience. There must be a lot of ideas and innovations that have been discussed here already. I had a glimpse of some of the MIT ones at the exhibition. And very clearly, there's a great deal that we could, I'm sure that those of you who have attended this regularly have gleaned from this experience. For too long, we've had a complacent view of the role of R&D in driving economic growth, prosperity, and even social justice. So a civilization like ours, which was once at the forefront of both scientific thought and manufacturing, as late as the 17th century, that was still true. Today, we contribute a measly 3.2% of global R&D expenditure. And that's despite a growth in GDP since 2006. Our overall domestic expenditure on research and development has remained at 0.8% of GDP, while to take China as an alternative example, they've increased from 1.39% in 2006 to 2.08% in 2013. So their GDP was growing and they still managed to increase the percentage. We haven't managed to do that. The unacceptably low level of R&D surely has a correlation with the corresponding low share of India in global manufacturing and trade. The situation persists even as our national passion for jugaad has attracted international attention. In fact, in 2011, I was invited to inaugurate something called the India Innovation Institute at the University of Toronto. So a foreign university was studying Indian innovation. And the buzzword then, I remember, was Indovation, innovations being developed in India. In fact, even today, if you do a Google search for the phrase frugal innovation, the top 20 results you'll find all feature India. And we probably are natural leaders in frugal innovation, imbued as we are with the talent for developing makeshift but workable solutions from limited resources. The Indian kind of frugal innovation essentially conveys a way of life more than just of research. It's a worldview that embodies the quality of making do with what you have to meet your needs. And this is very much in response to local conditions. Indian companies were the first to recognize the opportunities in meeting the previously unknown or at least overlooked demand at the bottom of the pyramid. Shampoo sachets, for example, originated in India a couple of decades ago by creating a market for a product that the poor had never been able to afford. Indians without the space or the money to buy an entire bottle of shampoo for 100 rupees in those days could spend 5 rupees for a sachet they'd use once or twice. But India's leadership in frugal innovation has gone beyond downsizing. It involves starting with the needs of poor consumers, itself a novel term because who knew that the poor could be consumers, and working backwards. Instead of complicating or refining their products, Indian innovators have stripped them down to their bare essentials and made them affordable, accessible, durable, and effective. Indian ingenuity, therefore, has produced a startling number of world-beating innovations. None, one might argue, is more impressive than a car that has not done well in the Indian market, the Tata Nano. It costs roughly the same as a high-end DVD player in a luxury Western car. Of course, there's no DVD player in the Nano and no radio either in the basic model. But its innovations have gathered 34 patents. And they're not merely the result of doing away with frills, including power brakes, air conditioning, side view mirrors, none of which you can find on a Nano. But they reduce the use of steel by inventing an aluminium engine. They increase space by moving the wheels to the edge of the chassis. They relied on a modular design that enables a car to be assembled from kits, all of which proves conclusively that you can do more from less. Then there's the GE Mac 400, which is a handheld electrocardiogram device invented in India. It costs less than $800, and the cheapest equivalent anywhere in the world costs you $2,000. There's a Tata Swatch, a $24 water purifier, which is 10 times cheaper than its nearest international competitor. If you look at the electrocardiogram, it just uses 4 buttons rather than the usual dozen. It has a tiny portable printer, which makes it small enough to fit into a backpack or a satchel. It can even run on batteries. And so the cost of an ECG has come down to roughly $1 per patient. Now, the Swatch uses rice husks, which in our country is a very common agricultural waste product, to purify water. Now, if you take the fact that 5 million Indians die of cardiovascular disease every year, more than a quarter of them under 65, and about 2 million die from drinking contaminated water, then the value of these innovations is apparent. Moreover, medical innovations are widespread. An Indian company has invented a cheaper hepatitis B vaccine, bringing down the price, which used to be $15 per injection, to less than 10 US cents per injection. Insulin's price has fallen by 40%, thanks to India's leading biotech firm. The UNESCO Science Report says that frugal innovation in India is best described by the idiom, necessity is the mother of invention. India's innovation in producing low-cost, high-value products has transformed it into a major exporter of both R&D and testing services to the US. Our share of national exports to the US increased from 4.6% in 2006 to 9.4% in 2011, which is higher than China at 5.76 that year. Now, this is principally thanks to improved progress in R&D, and we need to give more preeminence to R&D in the policies we're adopting. Still, I can't help feeling that our reputation for frugal innovation rests too much on just simplifying things that others have already invented. After all, the car was invented elsewhere, even though the Nano simplified it. Or the electrocardiogram was invented elsewhere, even though we've now simplified it, and so on for all the examples I've given you. Why should that be? We are the country that invented the zero. We had the world's first surgeons. We are the ones who pioneered so much of technology. You go to Mehrauli and see the iron pillar, which still hasn't rusted after 2,500 years. What kinds of technology did we come up with in the ancient days that even to this day, in the case of the Mehrauli iron pillar, still haven't been replicated? What is it that we have lost in failing to come up with inventions that genuinely are pathbreakers that no one in the world has thought of before us? This is something we really need to think about. And you know, when I talk about inventing the zero, it's not a joke. I saw some kids sniggering in the back. The fact is that you just look at Roman numerals and you'll understand what an extraordinary advance that was in mathematics. Try writing a long number or doing a complicated addition or subtraction in Roman numerals, that indefinite string of alphabets going down the page. You can't. The zero actually transformed the world of mathematics. And indeed, the Indian numerals, as they originally were, before the Arabs borrowed them from us and they came to the West as Arabic numerals, but they were Indian in origin. All those are things we need to be proud of. Well, my friend Professor Mashelkar has instituted an innovation award. Every year he's giving an award now to an Indian innovation that meets a real need in India. And that, of course, he's not insisting that it be something no one has ever thought of, but there was a very interesting example he gave me of the first award winner last year. This was about, I don't know how many of you are aware that these eye drops that are done for essential testing for eyes, we have 15 million people a year who are going blind. That's a serious number of people with glaucoma, cataracts, and other preventable kinds of blindness. But one of the reasons that this happens is that the poor don't go and get tested. And they don't go and get tested, A, because they can't afford it, and B, because they can't spare the time. The tests require the dilation of your eye, so your eyes are blurred for the bulk of the day. And if you're a daily wage worker, you simply can't afford to lose a day's wages to get your eye tested. So you work on until blindness in the end overtakes you. What this Innovation Prize winner had done was to invent a method of dilating the eye and testing it that does not create blurring for a period of time. And therefore, he won this first award. It's an interesting example of how an innovation, a technological innovation took place that addressed a real human need in our country. And we need to see much more of that happening. Now, UNESCO tells us that in 2014, globally, around 1.47 trillion US dollars was spent on R&D. The US, of course, accounted for 28.1% of this expenditure, Europe another 22.7%, so that's already 50.8% just in the West, in the US and Europe. China then did almost 20%, and Japan 9.6%, while India's expenditure on R&D was merely 3.2%, as I mentioned earlier. And it goes up and down. The figures are all rather depressing. China has 1,071 researchers per million inhabitants. India, we have just 160. China is the most populated country in the world with 17.5% of the world's population. Accounts for 19% of the total researchers in the world. We are the second most populous with 17% of the world's population, but we only have 2.7% of the world's researchers. So these are real problems. Even FDI in India in R&D was only $500 million in each of these years, and that's after it's gone up from next to nothing in the years before. Now, at the same time, there are studies that are a little more optimistic about these trends. Wharton did a study in 2005 that showcased Indian R&D as a sort of three-act play. The first act showing advanced development of products, the second act basic research, software engineering, development, etc. And the third and final act would see American and European enterprises moving to India and making it an R&D powerhouse. I'm not totally satisfied with that kind of three-act play, because I want to see Indian companies actually making our own country an R&D powerhouse, because we need to understand that the production of knowledge and innovation is very much the key to creating economic strength in our globalized world. Our R&D enterprises are, however, now ambitiously moving in this direction towards fields such as IT and biotech and so on. And they're also improving traditional products like Ayurveda, where there's a lot of interesting R&D taking place. Other sectors, modern sectors, the automobile industry, for example, India is becoming more and more of a center for manufacturing and assembling cars. I don't know how badly that'll be set back by the horrors in Chennai, because Tamil Nadu has been the center of the automobile manufacturing and assembling industry. But there was a prediction last year that we are likely to overtake Thailand in the next couple of years as the world's largest manufacturing and assembling center for cars. That may not happen if the lessons that are derived from the fact that so many car manufacturers had to shut down their factories during the floods are that India isn't a wise place to come in and invest. most of the multinational corporations are increasingly choosing to set up centers here, though. Initially, lower costs were their attraction, but I think they've gone beyond the low-cost mentality. It's the current skill set of India's workforce, particularly our engineers, who have improved in their ability to innovate, that have inspired more MNCs to find their way here. We have now the largest innovation facility of GE outside the US, out of a 50-acre campus in Bangalore. Hewlett Packard's R&D center, also in Bangalore, is creating technology that will eliminate the need to use a keyboard and substitute them with human gestures. That I think will be interesting for all our mobile phone users in this country. We have also concerns that we may not be capitalizing sufficiently on our resources because we don't have enough infrastructure and research labs available. In 2011, the National Innovation Council recognized 20 industrial clusters which were to be assisted by a $1 billion fund to create an ecosystem for innovation to further increase our R&D, and this was supposed to be done in association with industry chambers. Now, I don't know whether Vicky can tell us how much of that 1 billion actually emerged and helped you all to do the innovation in industry, but my suspicion is we are somewhere short of that target even today. BRICS is being talked about more and more in R&D. It's true that BRICS countries are increasing their expenditure, but we're still woefully behind the standards of America and Europe. McKinsey published a report stating that the BRICS countries presented an opportunity to multinational corporations to expand their markets and widen their R&D, but again it was a focus on lower costs. And I'm just tired of this lower cost argument, because it's got to be value for money. It's not got to be just lower costs, but high quality at lower cost. And that's something we can stress in our country. Finally, we do need to boost R&D in various sectors, but we need to also do more R&D in education. I just asked a question in Parliament yesterday to our education minister about the lack of innovation, the habit of producing engineers who remain unemployable. Our universities just give about 4% of our total expenditure of GDP on R&D. Now that's absurd, because in the Western world the figures are very different. Universities account for about 25% of R&D expenditure in the West. Our president keeps on hammering away at the fact that no Indian university features in the top 200 of any global ranking. Why is that? Well, these university rankings give a lot of weightage to research. We got a briefing, I remember, from the Times higher education people when I was minister, and they basically said that 40% is directly research, another 40% is on citations, which are usually, of course, a published research. So since we have a university culture where our universities are teaching institutions where little research is done, and research is done in institutions where there's very little teaching, our universities just don't get enough research marks to score highly in the university rankings. This must change. And we need to open this up. And I've suggested that one of the things we should do is have much more interface between the private sector and universities. What's wrong with an IIT going to a university and saying, look, what's wrong with the business? Going to an IIT and saying, we have this idea for a product. Do you have enough doctoral candidates or graduate students who are prepared to research this and come up with an innovative product? If you do, we'll split the profits or whatever, share the patent. There are various ways in which this can be done. It's fairly commonplace in the West. It's practically unknown in India. We need to do much, much more of this. And while I tried to encourage it during my very brief stint in the ministry, the idea seems to have largely been forgotten in the current regime, and I hope it's revived. Intellectual property rights are also an important aspect, because you need to create an incentive for people to come and invest in R&D by assuring them that their intellectual property rights will be respected. That's the only way you can become a technology-driven economic giant, as we are capable of being and deserving being. Finally, I want to repeat a point I've already alluded to when I talked about percentages of GDP, that India has an excellent scientific community that is talented but underfunded. We need to get the global corporations into putting money into the Indian scientific community in order to retain talent in our country. Brain drain has been a cause of worry. It's dismaying that there are as many, in fact, there are more Indians who won Nobel Prizes with American passports than Indians who won Nobel Prizes as Indians. And that's something we need to be conscious of, because in many ways the concern is that our facilities and conditions for research are not as good as they can find in the Western world. Of course, this means universities have to upgrade their quality, but at the same time it also means that we have to make it possible and attractive, and we have to pick cutting edge things to do. And I'm pleased to say there is one example I can give you that I visited personally, which is at IIT Indore. They have a telescope that's doing some cutting edge astrophysics research. It's a telescope they built here. Some of the parts were imported, but they built it at Indore, and they are doing a kind of sort of research into astrophysics that there is only one other lab anywhere in the world doing. What's striking there is that the professor in charge of the project is an Indian American who had tenure at one of the top universities in America, was tempted back to his country. And he's assisted by a crew of doctoral students. And the lead doctoral student is a young Muslim boy from a village not far from Indore, who was so brilliant that he won scholarships to every single top American university you can think of. Harvard, MIT, Caltech, the whole lot of them. And he turned those down to work with this professor in India on this project. So there is hope, but there are too few examples like this. I want to see much more of this happening. Let me stress once again that we need to connect the dots between industrial need and the academic curriculum. In fact, one thing we have to acknowledge, however, is that the multinationals have created perhaps 250,000 jobs in our country over the past decade, but their products have been of little benefit or use in our economy. They're mainly using Indian brains to create products for out there. And that's something we need to think about. Only 74 of the 706 MNCs that set up R&D centers between 2003 and 2009 have created innovative products and obtained patents in India. So I think it would be useful if we can give tax breaks and other incentives for these companies to do things that the Indian consumer can use. And I must say that that this is something we still have to work on. So let me conclude by saying that we need to build up our R&D capabilities if we want to maximize our potential for innovation. With government support, a multidisciplinary approach towards R&D, better quality educational institutions, world-class educational institutions, an effective funding model, a young workforce, which demography is giving us, a thriving and influential scientific community, enlightened policy making and the development of science, enhanced technological capability, the presence of private enterprises committed to R&D, and an intellectual property regime that's WTO compliant and WIPO compliant, then India can be a very attractive destination to create centers for R&D. I often used to say when I was minister, look, we have 17% of the world's brains because we have 17% of the world's population. So why do we produce only 4.2% of global research publications? We can do better. And I would love to see the world coming to India, and I'm sure that we will benefit the rest of the world if those brains can be given an opportunity to work on sustainable solutions to make the world a better place for future generations. Thank you again for giving me an opportunity to raise some of these broader themes. I renew my apologies to Ficky and to my fellow participants in this valedictory session. We began a bit later. I will have to abandon you.
Thank you, Dr. Tharoor, but we'll have some innovation and jugaad here. So before you go, if there are some questions.
I can take one or two, but then I have a 6:30.
Two questions, yeah. He's good.
Ji. Yeah, from?
Qatar.
Qatar, okay, right.
In fact, we are promoting the Global Invention Expo in Qatar.
Okay.
Qatar Foundation.
Right.
As your Excellency told about the great history of India, that we got a great history, that we invented a lot of things since last thousands of years. But why India has not become a technology country.
Exactly.
In fact, I was sitting with the chairman of the Qatar Chamber of Commerce talking about all these things. And I said, sir, we want to bring to 100 countries for the global invention expo. They extend all support. They said, Siddiq, if you go for the press announcement and all, if you say inventions and innovations, don't tell India first. Then the people will misunderstand. He will lose the support and all. I told him, sir, we are sitting in the only one Chamber of Commerce of Qatar. But in India, we have more than 600 Chamber of Commerce. We have more than 10,000 technology institutions in India. Okay? And some of our chambers, some of our technology institutions, more than 400 years, 500 years. But why it happened, India could not become a technology country. The reason, we failed in marketing our technologies across the world in a proper way. Like I am from Kerala, you know that Indian people, they need foreign support. So India has to set up Indian technology centers in every part of the world. This is the only solution, because whatever technologies we have to capitalize first before we create the new technologies, because India is already having thousands of innovations
Thank
and
you.
inventions.
Yeah. Thank you very much,
So
Mr.
this
Sadiq.
we would like your support,
Yeah.
and we want to
Thank you.
set up the first technology center in Qatar with your support, and Vicky, and of course,
Very good.
billionaire Mr. Ashok Chavan. Thank you.
Would you like to say something?
No, I think these are very interesting plea, and I hope that everyone has been listening, and that we
Yeah.
can all collectively be of some use to encourage Qatar to
Excellent,
also
excellent.
contribute to innovation in India.
Excellent proposition, and I'm sure that Niranka would be taking down your number very soon. Okay, one more question. See, I had warned you that to our students we say either you have not listened or you not understood.
Maybe I just
Okay,
left them
I'll
without-
just ask you one question. Okay, there's one there. I'll leave my question there, sir.
You said that in India we require to set up the world-class institution and education institution. But when we observe the private institution, the salary structures of the private institution to the teachers are very poor. And even though they are giving the salaries to private institutions, I have to do 3 months a grade. Then we have to make such kind of.
I agree with you that we do need to reward teachers much better in our country, and that rewarding teachers is the best way to encourage more and more good people, qualified people to come into the profession. It is sadly believed that a large percentage, I mean, there is a famous old line which says that those who can do, those who cannot teach. I mean, that's unkind, but it's very often the case in our country that that teaching becomes a lower option than various other career options, and often teachers are those who fail to do that. Because the salary structure, I agree, because the salary structure is
But
not
the
satisfactory. So I would agree with you. Now, the problem is the economics of education.
Seventh pay commission is going to be implemented
And the government colleges,
But
yes.
that's only in the government colleges. Yeah.
in private institutions and organizations. Still they are fighting for fifth and fourth and something else.
No, I agree with you. And what is more, attempts to regulate this have failed. For example, there are some states where the government has mandated a certain minimum salary even in private schools and colleges. And what we have discovered is they pay that salary on paper, but they actually take back a portion from the teachers. And so in the end, the teachers are.
We'll just pick up that question with Dr. Chauhan, who knows everything about the problem you just raised. One last question, shorter, because he has to leave.
It's always a pleasure to listen to you.
Thank you, sir.
It's a great listening. So we have the data what you have shown. It says we are working on a suboptimal level of investment in R&D. That's why that innovation is also not that driving here. But what is it that motivates that all that MNCs in the world investing in India when so of suboptimal level, but all big houses are coming at the largest R&D houses in India? So there is some misconnect. Can you just elaborate on that?
No, I think they're coming in simply because, frankly, you can get educated talent cheaper than anywhere else. And that too, very often English-speaking educated talent, people who've been educated in English. So there is work that is being done here, which could be done in the West, but at 4 times the cost. And so naturally, that's the incentive to come. If these were truly, shall we say, quality-focused, I think we'd see much more by way of output and patents coming out of these processes than we've seen so far. But broadly speaking, the potential is there, because there is no question that we have bright people. And there is no question that it's not, as some disparagingly have dismissed it, sort of coolie labor. It's much more than that. It's the kind of stuff that can be done elsewhere. In fact, in a totally different area, not technology, if you look at legal services, there's now been a significant growth in the business of Indian trained lawyers actually writing briefs and preparing case notes and so on for American law firms, even though these people are not legally entitled to practice in law. So they are treated as if they are paralegals, even though they're fully qualified lawyers. But they're paid less than a paralegal would be in the West. And they do the work that a lawyer who would be paid 100 times more would be done. So again, there is a certain level of exploitation there, because the lawyer who is using the product of this chap here is charging $1,000 an hour or more, whereas a fellow who's done it here is getting perhaps $100 an hour, if that, maybe less. But the fact is that that's what makes him attractive to hire. If he were as expensive as those who could do the same work in America, they do it in America. Another example we have here is the transcription services in medicine. Doctors in, say, America are, at the end of the day, dictating their notes into a machine. That's then zinged over while the doctor goes to sleep in America. It reaches here when Indians wake up in the morning. A medically qualified person then transcribes the notes on a computer, sends it back to the doctor. When he wakes up in the morning, he has his medical notes all transcribed for the day's work. It's an extraordinary service. It could not be done in America, and it could not be done for an affordable cost. So he's economizing massively on his secretaries and more, and he's getting it done here. The reading of MRIs. Do you know there are MRIs taken in Boston that are being read in India? The technician, the radiologist is here. But you can do this by computer technology. You just have the MRI done there. It's viewed in India, and the technologist is earning a salary that's about 1/4 or 1/5 of what the radiologist, and of course radiologists are scarce in America. There's actually a shortage of them. And so on and so forth. So there are examples like this all over the place. All I can say is that really cost alone can't be there. It's cost plus ability. What I would like to see is that going up to cost plus high quality. There we haven't yet made the breakthrough, because then, of course, if your quality is of international class, you can afford to raise your costs and pay your Indian talent better. And that will benefit all professions linked to innovation.
We hope so.
Services
We have
are fine. The next Pentium processor is also designed in India and in Bangalore. Intel
But this chap Vinod Dham was working in America when he invented
yes,
the Pentium
absolutely.
processor.
So
The iPad was designed by a Hyderabad company
now
called
it's
Portal Player.
all that is changed. Geographies, because of the innovation
The
and
iPod.
R&D, geographies are changing, and now mostly, I mean, all our libraries will be on cloud very soon. Just one last thing, Dr. Tharoor. The FICCI has decided to plant a thicket of 5 trees in your honor
Only 5?
at the periphery
the speech was
of
worth more.
Sundarbans National Park, South 24 Parganas, West Bengal, India. And I'll call upon Nirankar to give you this. You are now a certified green person, and we are honored to have you here.
For the entire region, Uganda, Kenya, Ethiopia, and it's supported by the one.
Thank you. Thanks, Pankaj. See you all, gentlemen. My apologies for abandoning
Thank you.
You got your picture?
So, thank you to our guest who had to run, but I promise you that the rest of the discussion would be as lively and as knowledgeable and with our other guests. And now I call upon Dr. Ray Johnson, and who has been hearing Dr. Tharoor, and who will now give his proposition on leveraging international cooperation to boost Indian innovation ecosystem. That's what we were talking about. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, first of all, let me thank FICCI for putting this conference, this 2-day conference together. It's been fantastic. The students are leaving, and I've really enjoyed being part of it. I guess I'm very optimistic about the future of India. If you use words like disruption, innovation, jobs, and growth, those are things that not only India is thinking about, but those are things that every nation in the world is thinking about. When I gave my introductory remarks on the first day, I talked about the difference between invention and innovation. Other speakers have used those terms, invention being the creation of the idea, innovation being the application of the idea to goods and services. In the 10 years that I've been involved with the India Innovation Growth Program, I can absolutely say with 100% confidence that India has no problems with invention. Yes, there may be some process issues associated with patenting and all that, but the creative talent in India is second to none in the inventive process. There is no question about that. What is lacking, thank you, what is lacking is the translation of those inventions to innovations. And the good news is that that doesn't have to be something that happens by chance. It is actually a learned skill. And so the learned skill that you see in Silicon Valley, in the ecosystem that is that process that's so refined in taking inventions and creating innovations, that can be taught and that can be learned. And that's in part what the India Innovation Program was all about, was training the people. Indian scientists, Indian students lead the world. When I think of India, I think of analysis and analytics. And if you walk down the halls of Stanford University or MIT or big businesses, you find Indian students at the top of the class. And they're not only at the top of the class in engineering, but they're at the top of the class in business classes and other classes. So India has every opportunity. And now I would really encourage you to take advantage of the alignment of the planets that are there. You have a prime minister who's focusing on innovation. You have Make in India. You have the invitation for multinational companies to come in and be partners in this process and learn from that. So I'm very optimistic on the opportunities for India. Again, thank you for inviting me to come and speak with you in the last 2 days, and I look forward to partnership with India going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson. That was really encouraging. And I think that this is the kind of spirit which is going to take innovation and R&D forward between our two countries. Thank you for those words. And now I call Dr. Chauhan, who is going to talk about things. But just one thing, I'd like to say here is that when Shashi was talking about research potential in India, you look at the PhD graduates in our country. And this is a research recently done by ISB, I think, Indian School of Business, that in 1998, Russia had 18,000 PhDs, and now they have about 34,000 in 2009, within 10 years. And US had 42, and now it's 49. India, on the other hand, had 10,408, and it's still 10,000. So why do we lack this potential in research? You also have PhD students in MIT. We also have PhD students in JP Business School, and I'm very new to academics. I've been still struggling with this. So maybe you can throw some light on that from the education perspective. Please, sir. Dr. Chauhan.
My dear students, I feel how fortunate you are. Whoever is participating in Global R&D Summit organized by FICCI is bound to be a very successful innovator, not only in India, but all over the world. Because the hours you spent here, you are taking your breath in innovation. If you had some breakfast or lunch or dinner, you are eating innovation. You are dreaming innovation. In the whole world, the commercialization of innovation is a very difficult new topic. And you are sitting in a hall organized by FICCI. They are the biggest innovation commercialization and for the societal use. Because I know them. They work together with University of Texas at Austin, IC Square, which is the biggest innovation commercialization organization in USA. So I must, Nirankar Saxena ji, compliment you and congratulate you, and Swati, you also. These two are working so hard, and only yesterday I heard Dr. Didar Singh at a UP NRI conclave preparatory meeting, and they are also having a cooperation with FICCI. So I would say that please keep contact with FICCI, and I don't know from which semester you are, but I have been told you are mostly engineering students. Your Dr. P.B. Sharma is sitting over here, who was the director of the DC, the founder director, and also the vice chancellor of the vice chancellor of Delhi College of Engineering. Sir, these students should sometime come to meet you and make them the great innovators. So, my dear students, I appreciate you coming here. Pankaj Pachori ji, I met you many years back at the NDTV studio when there was a budget talk, and since then I was very impressed from your knowledge, from your presentation, and very clear articulation. And that day I was thinking, if this gentleman comes in academics, it will be a value addition to the academics. I'm glad that you are now heading the JP School of Business. We are proud that you are having moderation of it. All those scientists and all those guests sitting over here, I would say that you are taking part in an event which will boost the growth and the success and progress of India. Dr. Shashi Tharoor rightly told, बिल्कुल ठीक कहा उन्होंने, that now whole world will come to India. I was 28 years in West Germany. 6,000 Germans were on my payroll. My dear students, I am telling you, you should have the confidence that our brains, our genes, our values are without parallel in the whole world. You can achieve anything and everything, as Dr. Johnson also told very correctly, whatever you like. Therefore, I compliment that you are sitting over here. All scientists, those who are sitting over here, I compliment. And I must say, Swati, you dropped a paper at my office, the proposal for ICMR, the Indian Council of Medical Research. They are partnering with them they have 50 different laboratories. They are partnering with them for the commercialization of their all technologies and know-how. I would say that one thing, Nirankar surprises me, how it comes that everybody at FICCI is so competent, so efficient. This is really, therefore keep touch with them. Swati, take care of these students so that whenever they need your advice, they get help. And I heard very well Johnson ji, Dr. Natalia, we also are glad to have you here. And I was told about Mr. Vijay Mahajan that he is a great, brilliant person from University of Texas at Austin. Sir, we are very proud to have you here. I know the importance of your university. I will not take much time. Dr. Sharu has told a lot of things which are very relevant. And I only say all those who are sitting over here are very lucky, and you have taken the right decision not to go anywhere else. Then be here, listen carefully. We have to be number one in innovation in the whole world. I have no doubt with 125 billion people, our brain, we can beat everybody, win everybody, and the time is going to come when the whole world will come here. I know that my scientists are invited in USA companies and institutions because they want to utilize our brain. We may not have the laboratories as they have, but we have the brain which is unparalleled. So once again, I compliment everybody who is present there. My blessings for all.
Thank you, Dr. Chauhan. Thank you. Now, I invite Dr. Vijay Mahajan. And with the proposition, we've been talking about Indian Jugaad all the time. I personally think that Indian Jugaad system, or the frugal innovation as it is put, is something which is ad hoc and you can't scale it up. This is what I think. And we should not take so much pride in that particular innovation which we do. And what are your thoughts on it? What are your thoughts on international cooperation and how we can boost India's innovation ecosystem? Dr. Mahajan. Sir.
Oh, okay. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm glad it's the end of the day. But it's been a fascinating experience. I'm so glad that I came to FICCI's summit. I want to thank you so much. I had a great time. Let me make a couple of comments, concluding comments, and hopefully we'll all feel very good about ourselves. It was fascinating to hear Shashi Tharoor, but sometimes I think it's not fair to compare ourselves with the rest of the world. It's simply not fair. That we spent 2.9%, they spent 8.7%. Ladies and gentlemen, there is no comparison. Let me give you a couple of examples. How many of you feel very proud of your IT industry, that they have done a fantastic job and they have given a fantastic name to the Indian IT industry, the rest of the world? Raise your hand if you feel very proud of your IT industry. Raise your hands, please. One more time, raise your hands. Ladies and gentlemen, if I start comparing numbers, the entire IT industry in India is $150 billion. Do you know how much cash Apple has? Cash, just the cash, that they're sitting on it. $300 billion. It's not fair to compare. IT industry has brought so many laurels to this country. It has brought so much fame to this country. You cannot compare. It's not apples and apples. Let me give you a second example. Some years ago, I was asked to make remarks on the importance of Pratham. How many of you know Pratham? How many of you think they have done a very, very good job? Raise your hands. How many of you think they have done a good job? Most of you think they have a great job. In fact, all the studies, the assessment studies that they do, they have brought to the attention of even the policymakers. So I was very curious, why so much big deal about the Pratham? And this was about 7-8 years ago. Jawan was in Austin. At that time, total GDP of India, about $1.6 trillion, was equal to GDP of state of Texas, $1.6 trillion. Though India is close to about 2 trillion, and state of Texas is about 1.8. That's not interesting. But comparing the numbers is not very interesting. At that time, the state of Texas was also spending 3% of its GDP on the education system, which is exactly equal to what India was spending on their education system in India. So imagine, state of Texas with 23 million people was spending the same money on the education that India was spending on 1.2 billion people in India. Ladies and gentlemen, you cannot expect to produce same number of the PhD students that the state of Texas can do exactly with the same money. It's not apples and apples. You should be so proud of that despite the fact that your economy is equal to the state of Texas, you are able to do so well. Give yourself a big hand. Now, let me make a second comment here. Second comment is, we do not have to compete with the rest of the world. We want to compete with the rest of the world where they cannot compete with us. It's not a question of how much money we spend. It's not a question of what we produce. We produce what they cannot produce. I mean, Shashi Tharoor himself gave us an example. Professor, what's the example he gave? Mashkar's, the best innovation that he gave, that I'm sorry? Rest of the world cannot do. There were scientists sitting in America. They could not do. Shashi Tharoor should be telling us, let's do what America cannot do. And ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you what America cannot do. Let me tell you what the Western Europe cannot do. Let me tell you what the Chinese cannot do. Let me tell you what Japan cannot do. Let's think about that, what does Make in India means. And I think you have to realize the global realities, what Make in India means. Ladies and gentlemen, there were 4 statements made. One was, let's make in India for India. Who made that statement? Head of RBI. He says, let's make in India for India. Second statement was made that let's make in India that the Western Europe will like. Why can't we produce the cars that they have? Why can't we produce the bicycles that they have? Why can't we produce the pharmaceuticals that they can produce? Absolutely not. Third is, what is that India can do? Ladies and gentlemen, India has an opportunity, like it said yesterday, to impact the life of 3.4 billion people on this planet. India is the largest country with a rural population. Ladies and gentlemen, you cannot have an inclusive strategy if you ignore 70% of the population in this country. You cannot. You will not. And their problems are not to compete with Mercedes-Benz. Their problems are not to compete with Merck, so you can have a better sex life. We have very unique problems. And ladies and gentlemen, the 70% of the people needs to be brought into an inclusive strategy. And if you do that, only in Africa, if you look at the 10 largest the countries in the world, the rural population, 2.4 billion, 80% of the rural consumers in Africa and Asia, you'll have a big impact on that. So what does Make in India means? Make in India means let's make somebody the rest of the world is not interested, and we're going to have an impact on 3.4 billion people on this planet. And you know what? There are only 400 million people who live in the rural areas outside Asia and Africa, and the largest chunk is in America. 400 million people, largest chunk is in America, 19% of their population. And guess who will be buying the products from you? The rural population in America. And who has proved it? Anand Mahindra has proved it. His tractors are bought, and they have a headquarters in Houston, Texas, and his tractors are bought by the rural population of the United States. Ladies and gentlemen, be proud. Be proud. And next time, tell these ministers, do not compare with us, compare us with ourselves. We are the best. We will do it, and we're going to have an inclusive strategy, so 70% of the people are not ignored in this country. God bless you, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Mahajan. That was really rousing at the end of 2 very, very grueling days. And I don't know where you get that energy from. Maybe it's for the coffee.
This man here.
Thank you very much for such enlightening insight into India, its inequality, and why an unequal society, even if it innovates, it will be only for the people who can harvest the innovations. And that's why we need to take everyone along, 70% of India, which lives in our rural areas, and 80% of India, which is not connected right now, don't use internet. So there's a huge potential for all the people, all of you who want to be billionaires, the future Zuckerbergs and Jeff Bezos. And there's a potential, but there's a huge challenge as well. Next, I'd like Natalia Agapitova from the World Bank. Would you like to stand at this, or that's fine? So
Sorry, I'll just sit. And
Okay.
thanks, Dr. Mahajan, for waking up the audience for me. I'm the last woman standing between you and the dinner plan, so I'll try to be very brief. I would like to thank the honorable dignitaries and my fellow colleagues for your attention, and it has been 2 very fruitful and productive days on a very important topic. And it's hard to come after all of the inspirational speeches at the end, but they created a very important segue for what I would like to say about our collaboration with FICCI and NITI Aayog. And I would like to thank both organizations for their leadership of the social innovation agenda, of social enterprise innovation agenda, because that's what actually brings me to the link between the economic and social growth. And innovation for decades was seen as a driving force for competitiveness and job creation, but it was competitive and job creation for exclusive few. The world divide was growing large, and high-tech R&D requires high-tech skills and requires highly educated, competitive individuals who receive from the birth date and before quality healthcare, who have connection to internet, world-class education from primary and even preschool level, healthy educated parents, and God knows what else we get in developed countries that we don't even think of. Fluoride in the water, iodized salt, we don't make those decisions. And then we see 1 billion of people globally that is behind, that don't get those fundamental services, and they are losing opportunities to catch up with the global economies, to catch up with the jobs that are created for richer, more developed countries. And it is essential to use the power of businesses, the power of entrepreneurs to solve those social challenges. Most of the technologies and innovations to solve the development issues already exist. How to get them to the bottom of the pyramid poor, how to bring those people and fundamentally help them mobilize their potential. that's a question not only for the government, that's a question for businesses and question for entrepreneurs. And Honorable Dr. Tarur already spoke very eloquently about millions of innovations that exist in India that promote the social enterprises and give the power to the poor to solve their own challenges. And I'm really glad that most of the discussions today converged to the topic of frugal, inclusive innovations and the importance of creating the ecosystem that allows the grassroots entrepreneurs, allows the rural entrepreneurs to join the global economy, to leverage the technologies. And it would be extremely opportune for us to work with NITI Aayog, to work with FICCI, to help advance this agenda. And a very small step towards that will be a workshop that we are organizing the next week, and I would like to invite the government officials who are interested in the topic of social entrepreneurship to join us. It will be on Monday and Tuesday, and the topic is really how the government can leverage the power of businesses and the power of social enterprises to deliver on the development challenges. There are more details that could be obtained from FICCI or from us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Agapitova. Thank you very much, and it's very encouraging to hear the words from Washington, D.C., that in the future also you have a very clear-cut plan and a roadmap to work together on this particular thing, on increasing enterprise, social entrepreneurship. I think that's the way forward, and I think the businesses also have to see that the bottom of the pyramid we see as consumers. We have to look at the bottom of the pyramid as innovators, as entrepreneurs, as people who will drive the rest of the pyramid. Thank you very much for that. I'll call now Nirankar Saxena, and also since he's the last person, to just give us a roundup of what we are taking away in the last 2 days of your hard work.
Thank you, Pankaj. I think to sum up the session, I must first of all congratulate all my partners for their valuable input, and we respect the partnership of the government, and we respect the partnership of the World Bank. We respect the partnership and the great leadership of our education institution, and especially MIT. Dr. Chauhan has been our support. We respect the partnership of our diaspora who is here, and we respect the partnership of our great mentors, international mentors, like Dr. Ray Johnson, who is on FICCI Science and Technology Committee. Special thanks to Mr. Len Denton, who had come all the way from the US and passionate about India. And special thanks to my respected mentor, Professor Mahajan, who will have to challenge and change and transform India with your vision. With these, I think I like to ensure the FICCI commitment and FICCI commitment on science and technology innovation. What we feel that if India economy has to move on from 2 trillion to 10 trillion in 10 years, the only one thing India should focus in leveraging research, innovation, R&D, and incubation, and taking the Indian products for social impact, taking the Indian products for global masses, seeing India as an inclusive market. And with these, we are with Prime Minister on Startup and Stand Up India. As I was discussing with Pankaj, we are setting up an initiative with most 10 vibrant states in the country: Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, Karnataka, NCR Delhi, West Bengal, Maharashtra, Gujarat. And the mission mode is defining a target of at least supporting 10,000 startups in every state in 10 years. Friends, if you combine the effort of 10 states, it will come to something like 100,000 startup support for the national economy and for the global economy. And each startup is going to create at least 5 to 7 million jobs for our country in next 10 years. That is what FICCI commitment and FICCI Corporate World commitment to the Government of India, to our international partners, to our Indian industries, and to our education institution. These are the takeaways from our 2 days deliberation, and we are pledged. We will be issuing our outcome document very shortly. the senior press journalists are already recording our statement, and we will be sharing for your valid input with all the knowledge esteemed speaker who grace the occasion, and releasing this document on the national interest to Niti Aayog and to the Prime Minister Office and to the Department of Science and Technology and to DRDO and to everyone. With these words, I'd like to thank Pankaj for moderating this wonderful session, and I think thanks all the esteemed speakers and audience and the students who are present here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. As I was walking today out of my room in JP Business School, I was accosted by a student, and he said, I said, what? I'm in a bit of a hurry. He said, sir, I want to create an app for carpooling in my area. So I told him, you go and talk to the people in the engineering side and find someone who can code and get it out in the market as fast as possible before the smog clears out. So that's the kind of enterprise we have even in students, and I think that's the kind of enterprise that entrepreneurship of Indian spirit will take us forward, and I'm sure all your plans will see fruition very soon. Thank you, all of you again. Any questions? I think the dinner beckons. No, sir, Sharma, yeah, you have a question. Sir.
Dr. P. Sharma has a question.
Sir.
Answer your question which you had asked. How could Indian universities rise to the challenge of increasing the number of PhDs? In Amity University, we are very conscious that while numbers are important, the quality is also very important. Amity has taken the firm resolve to ensure that 5,000 PhDs are produced from the Amity University group. But every single PhD must be rated as the very best we could produce in the global context, which means the output must be relevant to the industry, publications must be in index journals, and the quality of research must be tailored around the national as well as the global needs of the human community. Coming to the question which I really, but then the caution is, which this is what I wanted to leave this point in your mind, that since we have multiplied undergraduates in great number in this country and lost on quality, your whole idea of looking at rural India is and all this will not work in this country. We have seen in 68 years of our democratic life that much of the how rural development will happen is on the strength of boosting the startups.
Well, creating PhDs is certainly important. I watched for 15 years PhD students from a particular country go to the United States, and that was from South Korea. And then went to the United States, and oftentimes they would stay and work there. But then all of a sudden they started going back to South Korea because the job opportunities in the multinational companies that had been developing in Korea were greater than the opportunities that they had as Koreans if they stayed in the United States. And so I think you can certainly create a lot of PhDs. PhDs will go where the jobs are and where the opportunities are, so I think both have to happen. You have to create the opportunities for them to stay here and get globally competitive jobs and opportunities, and then they'll stay in India and work.
Thank you. Very well put. Thank you. Very well put. And Dr. Mahajan, you wanted to answer the question.
Yeah, just the comments.
Is the Chinese model, I mean, again, apples and oranges?
Is there apples and oranges? And let me make you raised actually you made 3 comments. First comment, I will totally agree with you. It's not the number; it's the quality of the PhD students. In fact, some of the best PhD programs in the United States, their numbers are much smaller than the numbers in the state universities, including my own. That's because the quality matters. Because for these people, it's very important they keep the reputation, the brand name. They take fewer students, best students, and they get the best placement. Caltech will be an example of that. MIT will be an example of that. So there I totally agree with you that it's the quality that matters. Now, secondly, there are many Indians don't want PhD anymore. Let me tell you, a few years ago, my university, including University of Chicago, University of Pennsylvania, the biggest chunk of the students that we will have application, they'll be from India. Last year, we had only 1. Okay, and these are not the people from the IIMs and the IITs. They don't come anymore. So we have a big dilemma that the number of the Indian students have gone up. So guess who's coming now? That is filled by the Chinese and the South Koreans. Okay, so the Indians do not want a PhD themselves because the best of them, like someone pointed out here, they go where the jobs are. So now we have a dilemma that we are not getting the Indian PhD student, the quality PhD student that we have. Let me also make the third comment that you mentioned about the rural. I think it's not about the doing good for them. The only way that rural India would develop there is the private sector sees their opportunity. And that's the topic of my next book, which I've been talking to him. The rural government cannot develop that unless private sector sees that there are 700 consumers, and these 700 consumers, by the way, have money. 30% of the hero sales last year came from rural India. 33% of the Maruti sales last year came from rural India. And as I documented, which is very difficult to get, there's an emerging middle class there. And you can imagine many factors why there's emerging middle class, all the way from the remittances, some of the exciting government programs, diversification of their economy, so on and so forth, and all these factors that I have documented across all the 10 countries. Do not compare yourselves with China. I tell you why. Because Chinese numbers, I don't believe them. There are 250 million rural migrants in China, and these people are undocumented because nobody will recognize them. I don't know where those numbers go. Why? Because the hukou system they have. And hukou system says that if you're born in the state of Haryana, you go to work in Maharashtra, your children cannot get education in Maharashtra, they have to come back to Haryana. So guess who's taking care of the children back home? You have a whole bunch of the society which is going to be in big trouble because of the hukou system, and nobody wants to change the rule because who's going to pay for the, Maharashtra says, I'm not going to pay for the education of anybody who's coming from Haryana. So Shanghai says, I'm not going to pay for the education for anybody who's born in Chengdu. So do not compare that. This country is very blessed. This country is blessed in the sense that we have none of those rules. It's a free. And poverty is absolutely right, because the government interventions, as a matter of fact, you will see that graph there, and I interviewed all these people. It's amazing what they have done in reducing the poverty in the China, and that's something we can learn. And by the way, that happened with the government interventions. And the government interventions was how do we actually give them the minimum. We are doing the same thing in the United States. In the United States, we are raising the minimum salary, so the definition that we have of the, who's defined under poverty line, it will go up. So government is doing their interventions, Indonesia is doing that now. Indonesia has also increased the minimum raise, so this number of people who are before the poverty line will decrease, and that can be done. And I think that if the private sector takes an active role, and they say 700 million people are consumers for us, and government come and work with us, they can make it happen. It's not a charity. Do not look at the farmer as a charity. That guy also wants a Maruti car. And Maruti and Hero has proved it. Let's break it. We all need to go home.
Thank you very much. I mean, we can go on talking for another 2 days on this. The kind of energy I see here in the panel. Thank you very much to all our panelists. And Nirankar, the last honors you'll do. These are the green certificates, which please give our discussants.
So Nirankar, how many trees are you planting under my name? It better be 5.
Thank you very much. Very nice being here. Daria, thank you very much for very partnership. National important.
But I think on my, you are my Secretary General, wonderful. After leadership, I think you will take India map, Indian university map from the global level.
Part of you.
Yeah.
Part of you.
Thank you very much for your
Our Indian innovators have stripped them down to their bare essentials and made them affordable, accessible, durable, and effective.
India has no problems with invention.